Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Modern Sales Pros panel discussion on spotting risk and tactics to spot deal risk, sponsored by the team at Chorus. Really excited to have three great panelists with us and two first-timers, and Richard Harris, who's an old vet of MSP. But for all of our panelists, we have a little bit of a tradition on Modern Sales Pros before we jump into the content. We want to learn a little bit more about you. And with the world starting to open back up, I'd love to hear from each of you where you're excited to go now that the world is kind of safe to travel in, or a little bit more safe. And Randy, let's start with you. Randy, where are you excited to go now that you kind of get out of the house?
Just out to dinner. I have a 2.5-year-old and a 4.5-year-old. So just a little separation so I can miss them will go a very long way.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder.
No doubt.
I love it. Mark, how about you? Where are you excited to head?
Very excited to head to Miami. I'm moving there in 3 weeks. So flights opening back up is super useful right now. And yeah, just can't wait to be next to the beach.
Excellent. Well, congratulations on that, Mark. And then last but certainly not least, Mr. Richard Harris, where are you excited to go now that you're going to be able to get out of the house?
One, I'm just excited to get on a plane, just because I traveled so much and I haven't for the last year. But really, we're going home to see my mom and off the coast of Savannah in Tybee Island. And really, I'm excited to go hug my mom. You know, I just haven't had that, and I'm excited for her to hug her grandchildren. I know she's missing us, and we've done Zoom calls and talk weekly and all that, but still need a good hug from mom every now and then, and grandma.
Oh, that's good. It's good. It's always good to see family and friends and all that. And I think that, Randy, I'm with you. I'm just excited to get the hell out of the house and grab dinner somebody else made. Well, everyone, we have three amazing panelists. We have a lot to cover here today, so we're going to jump into it. Once again, today's event is hosted by the team at Modern Sales Pros. For those of you who don't know, Modern Sales Pros is the world's largest community for revenue leaders. So those are folks that are in sales management roles, sales and revenue operations, and the related supporting disciplines. Our community's mission is to create an environment for our members to answer questions they'd otherwise struggle to solve on their own. We do that through pulling together great panel discussions like what you're about to enjoy today, through robust discussion in our online forum, and once it's legal, once it's safe, once everybody's ready, we'll get back to also doing our in-person events. Both Richard and Mark are longtime members of the Modern Sales Pros community. So if you like what they're saying here today, we will encourage you to join afterwards so you can get even more great insights from them. And as I mentioned, our community is free for folks to join. And those of you who aren't members will be invited to join afterwards. But today's session wouldn't be possible without the sponsorship of Chorus. And I'm going to hand it off to Randy to say a few words about Chorus. Randy?
Yeah, thanks, Richard. So very excited to participate today. Really exciting times at Chorus, and perfect opportunity to work with Modern Sales Pros. Like MSP, we work specifically with rev leaders and growth organizations to help them and their teams bring the best to every customer interaction. We recently launched Momentum, which is a huge lift for any revenue leader, where you can actually get the voice of the customer and all the rich context of your conversations in Salesforce in your CRM. So excited to be here and participate and learn from Richard and Mark.
Awesome. And we're excited to be working with Chorus, not just for this event, but Chorus is also a sponsor of next month's upcoming Revenue Excellence Summit. If you like the content that you're getting here today, a virtual summit from MSP is 3 days of super dense programming. In this summit that we have is actually focused on the rise of customer in organizations instead of function out. The funnel is dead. Long live the flywheel. Join us to learn all about what it means to be a customer in and not function out organization. And the link is in the chat panel right there. But with that, enough about us, enough about me. Let's let our panelists introduce themselves. Richard, you want to kick us off?
Sure. Richard Harris from the Harris Consulting Group. I forgot to put on my MSP jacket. I might have to run and go get it when someone else is talking to, so I can show it off. But big fan of MSP and what they've done, and I've learned a ton from lots of people, including Mark on this call. Randy and I are getting to know each other, but I know everybody in Chorus. So I'm a sales trainer. The simplest way to describe what I do is I teach reps how to earn the right to ask questions, which questions to ask, and when to do it. And I'll stop talking now so that someone else can chime in.
And Mark, please introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Proud member, happy member of MSP. Like Richard said, I've learned a lot in this group. My experience is, 25-year sales career, individual contributor to begin. Then I started my own consulting practice in 2010. So I've seen a lot, I've had a lot of reps and seen a lot of reps, specifically around scaling revenue for companies in the mid-market. And that's where most of my experience comes from. Got some pretty wild ideas, and hopefully, some of them will be useful on this call. So I'll pass it over to Randy.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, Randy DeHaan. I lead corporate sales at Chorus. Actually got into revenue in a sort of circuitous path. I started with the Boston Red Sox out of school and ran a revenue center there for my first 8 years, and got into startups and got the bug. I was a practitioner, got into management, and now over the last decade in leadership roles. I'm all about scale and helping getting the most out of the pipeline and people. So I'm excited to participate today.
A wealth of experience here. And Randy, do you have a World Series ring?
Sore subject. I didn't get a ring, but I was on the duck boats. I was in the parade, and I have 8 years of once in a lifetime experiences otherwise.
That's pretty awesome. That's probably for a separate conversation for the MSP community. But excellent. We've got a wealth of experience here on our panel today. For folks that are joining us, please do use the Q&A panel for any questions you have. That allows us to keep the content flowing at a comfortable pace, and allows our panelists to follow up with you afterwards if maybe Richard or Mark or Randy want to dive in a little bit deeper. Also, before somebody puts it in there, today's session will be recorded, or is recording. And once that recording is processed by Zoom, it will show up on the MSP YouTube channel and our post-event landing page with all the key takeaways, usually about 24 hours afterwards. So with that, Richard, Mark, Randy, you ready to jump in?
Yeah,
let's do it.
Ask one thing of everybody, go into the chat and tell us where you're dialing in from. I always think it's fun to just see the flow of like people coming in.
Yeah.
All over.
Great idea, Richard.
Yeah, it's a fabulous idea, Richard. Let us know where you're dialing in from. We got Raleigh, we got some Boston people. I love that.
And hey, maybe we can chime in with where we are. Where are you, Richard?
I'm over in the Bay Area, so.
Got it. I'm in Toronto currently, and Randy?
I'm a Boston guy, but I actually got on a plane yesterday morning, and I am in Richard's country. I'm out in SF.
Got it.
Yeah, we got some Boston people in there, Seattle, the Bay Area. We got a little bit of everybody. This is excellent. Oh, somebody in Winchester. I love it. My aunt has a house in Winchester. Excellent, folks. Well, let's jump into it a little bit. So let's talk about, right? We're talking about forecasting. We're talking about managing risk in deals. Randy, let's start with you. When we think about this, how do I start to identify some triggers or reasons that deals won't close?
Yeah, I mean, I think just to get real, like this is a real challenge. I read a stat recently that 53% of forecasted deals don't close. So I mean, this is a timely stat. It's from CSO Insights, and so there's a lot of different triggers that I think could cause deals not to close. And we can talk about process and methodologies and things of the like, but sometimes it's just really simple, like identifying, are there next steps? Did a competitor come up? Are you asking the right questions? Are you losing the talk time battle? Things of that nature. Ultimately, it comes down to how do you enable your team to leverage those triggers and make sure they're spotting it throughout the process. But sometimes just the simple things, illuminating them, can be really powerful.
I think there's a lot to that point. And Mark, you mentioned you do a lot of coaching and consulting. You've led a lot of teams before. How do you think about kind of spotting risk or identifying blind spots in deals that will impact them from closing?
The most valuable lens for this specific aspect of sales, I've found, is value selling. It's a methodology that I was taught, and it actually has a formula which appeals to the engineer in me. I think in systems, and this formula is unemotional. It's mathematical. I'll actually show it to you. Can you guys see that? So
Yeah.
it says qualified prospect, right, equals, then on the other side of the equation, vision match differentiated by value, by power, by plan. So essentially, if any of these items on the right side of the formula goes to 0, you don't have a deal. You don't have a qualified prospect. Vision match differentiated just means the prospect sees you as the unique solution to his problem, or sees your solution as the unique solution to his problem. So that takes care of competition right there. Value says that the prospect sees how your solution will solve their business issue. Power means that you're talking to the person, or you have involved in the conversation, the person who can say yes or no. And plan is, I know that Richard mentioned this in our pre-call. He's really got some good ideas on this. Plan is just like mutual plan, close plan, right? What is the next step? And beyond the next step, are there other steps planned to get you to close, fulfillment, that type of thing? So looking through this lens, I found really removes the emotion from it. It removes happy ears, like, oh, we don't really have a next step, but boss, let me tell you why this is a deal. No, like this formula crushes all that. So it's a little crazy. Some people are going to say, man, that's too scientific. Sales is art. I feel we have a deal. Okay, that's fine. Just hasn't worked for me. This is what works for me.
I think that the happy ears and all of that is a very, very real challenge. Mr. Harris, before we start to jump into some of the questions, I know you've got a lot of opinions and a lot of perspective on this, though, but there's actually a fun point that you made about kind of one-on-ones and how they fit into this whole thing.
Yeah, so I'm going to get super tactical because I can't do math really well. Like I literally had how do I do a conditional formatting? Literally did that today. So in the one-on-ones, and I want to make sure people know two things. One, first of all, a one-on-one is about career pathing, which we're not talking about today. A pipeline meeting is about pipeline. Your one-on-ones are never pipeline meetings. So if you're doing that, that's a big thing. I'm going to leave that there. In your pipeline meetings, these are the things I'm always looking for. Any change in the close date. I'm also looking for what are the next 2 actionable steps, right? And is there a date? What date is associated with them? So, okay, if I'm going to get the proposal to them, great. Well, when are you supposed to hear back? Like we've all been this as the manager. And so rather than sort of be the critical parent that sometimes we can be, start coaching to the next 2 actionable steps. So that's the first thing. The second thing is again, in a pipeline meeting, is to always train your team to be able to come in and answer this one question. Hey, Randy, what's the one thing that's going to prevent this deal from closing by the end of the month or the end of the quarter or the end of the week? What's the one?
I love that.
And oftentimes there's going to be more than one thing, but it helps the rep start to prioritize the really important things. And you can dig in on it, right? And I would coach the reps that you're going to ask this question, knowing to come into one, but it's going to evolve into others. But so those are the 2 things that I do to help try and identify the triggers when I'm talking to the rep. I think there's other things that can be done, particularly with a great tool like Chorus of oh, we can listen for those actionable items and, get that fed into the CRM and all those kinds of things. So that's, find the right ways to work smarter and it'll work for you.
That's an incredibly powerful point there. Like, what's the one thing that's going to stop this deal from closing on this week, this month? That's certainly a game-changing piece of advice right there for some folks. First live question coming in from Peter, and Randy, I'm going to tee you up with this, and then other panelists feel free to hop in afterwards. We talked about qualified deals versus maybe the squishier deals. How do you balance having fully qualified deals with having enough in the pipeline to hit your number? I know it's how long is a piece of string question, depends on a lot of factors, but Randy, how do you think about this for your team?
I mean, I think as it relates to a deal review or a one-on-one, I think it's always valuable to have an agenda. I think there's a natural tendency to always want to talk about the deal that the rep wants to talk about, because no one wants to, like, you know, no one wants to have to go through that process of kind of getting their deal ripped apart. I think as a manager, as a leader, there's a natural tendency to try to coach to the number and coach to your forecast. And so you just try to get forensic on the deals that are closest to the money. So I think if you agree and prep in advance for what you want to cover, early stage, middle stage, late stage, it's a nice framework to just make sure that you're staying on track throughout. I'm a big believer, and I'm curious to get Mark and Richard's take on this, but if you're only talking about the late stage deals, I'd be willing to bet that you're not sweating the full asset of your pipeline with earlier stage opportunities. And so I think it's really important to strike that balance as you're coaching your team and looking at the pipeline.
Yeah, I may have a slightly controversial view on this. So, you know, I started my career in kind of big corporate, moved to the mid-market, and then for the last couple of years, I've been more in the high-ticket sales world, which is kind of outside the SaaS world, uses different terminology, still sales, but a couple of things around this world. It really boils sales down to the key crucial elements. Cash collected, like revenue collected, is how AEs, or as they're called, closers, are measured in that world. And to be honest, the deals closest to the money, yeah, you're going to focus on. Having the earlier deals in your pipeline to meet an artificial metric doesn't really do anyone any good. So just get rid of those.
Say that again for people in the back, Mark.
Having deals in your pipeline that won't close is nonsense. Please, listeners, stop doing nonsense. Now, okay, easy to say, easy for Mark to say, but I run a sales team and I have a CEO and we got investment. There's all these reasons for nonsense. Just stop doing nonsense and you'll do better. So a little controversial, but I'll let Richard kind of pipe up here.
I'm going to give you two really controversial pieces that double down on that. So one, any deal that is in your pipeline that's 2x the average sales cycle has to be closed immediately, right? If your sales cycle is 60 days and it's there 120, get rid of it. Sorry, go back to using, you're going to have to find a different task to manage it. I know too many people leave their stuff in the pipeline to become a task thing, and it looks like a closet full of nothing to wear. You sit there and you stare at it and you're like, I got nothing, but I got 25 deals in here. And what happens is when you actually clean it out, you actually go shopping for more deals and you feel better. You get rid of that dead weight. So get rid of it. Now, I will give you an exception. And I say this as a nice Jewish kid from the South, right? If you can get a letter, you can get a note from the Pope that says you're allowed to keep that deal, and you're comfortable taking that note to your CEO, then by all means, keep it in there. There are always going to be those big deals. There's going to be the Bluebirds, the Coca-Colas, the whatevers that do take longer, but really tighten up that piece. So that's the first controversial thing. Second controversial thing, and this is not mine, it's from my buddy Scott, is that stop lying to yourself that 3x the goal is the right pipeline. You know what the right pipeline is? 7x. You need to have 7 times your quota to get there. Because guess what happens when you have 7? You stop worrying about it. Right? So correct. Those are the two biggest things I would tell you to look at that will help. Because I loved what Randy said too about, like, nobody wants to sit there and go through that and get scrutinized and picked on. So I really, really love that. And I love the part about, sweating the full value of your pipeline. Well, he's right. And even at 7x, I'd still sweat the full value because I know I need to get through it. So manage the balance though. Manage the 2 times sales cycle, kill it, versus 7x. So, oh shit, I better leave it in there all this time for 8 months, right? Those can conflict. So you gotta make that manage. You gotta manage that part and manage your team to that part. And the best way to describe it is just be accountable. Lay out the expectations. Here's what we're going to do. What's the one question? You're going to, kill anything double X, double the pipeline, and let's go 7X over the pipeline. just let team knows that's how you're going to manage the business, and it'll be a lot easier.
Amen.
Yeah, love
And
it.
this is like life-changing, career-changing information Richard just gave you for free. Just send him a check, okay? Like, he just changed your life.
The first one's free. The next one I charge for.
We're going micro transactions for the next set of questions here. I love it. Actually, another question on this, and it does dovetail nicely into both our next point where we're going to talk about data. But this is a question from Mike, and I'm going to tee you up with this, Mr. Harris. You know, the 7X, and Mike's question is, as soon as they enter the pipeline, are you excluding disco phase? What does that actually mean? When does pipeline become pipeline? Mr. Harris, what have you seen be successful?
That's really two different questions, right? And the answer is going to be based on your conversion metric, in my opinion. So you're going to need to know, well, what does this need to be? And you have to really start doing really good math. And I would call Mark for this. Maybe he'll charge you a little bit of money for it. But okay, if I need to get to 7X, how many leads is that going to take? How many conversations? Like, you got to work the problem. Right. So in my mind, if I'm really trying to do it and it's new, I would say everybody that I have a conversation with has to convert from lead to opportunity, even if it's opportunity stage 0. Stage 0 doesn't show up in your commit numbers, but it could start to show up in your pipeline. So that's sort of where I try to draw the line, Mike.
And I think you started to hit on this a little bit, but Richard, let's just keep it going. Our next question that we want to really cover is like, what's the data that we need to make it happen? You've hit on a bunch of these points, Richard, but what else should people think about from a data perspective?
I'm going to pass this over to Randy and Mark. And Randy, look, Randy's the practitioner of the three of us. Like, he's the one who's running a team, looking at pipelines. So I defer to that. And Randy,
I'll just chime in real quick before Randy, because as you said, Randy has buckets more, data to look at. I'll just say anecdotally, in my perspective, from my perspective, engagement, especially across email, has been the data source that really gives me a leading indicator as to whether a deal will close. So I'm on the way to getting, these variables filled in. I don't have them all filled in yet, but I get a feel even before I have them filled in based on, it's just like texting. I don't know how many of you are, single or remember when you were single, but this happened to me last year. I'm texting someone, a girl, and it didn't work out. And after I was like, could I have told it wouldn't work out? And then I look at the ratio of my responses to her responses, and her, she's sending one-liners, I'm sending paragraphs. So kind of like that in your emails. If it's 70-30 rep to prospect, that doesn't give me a good feeling. Deals that close, I know have they have a balance, and the response time is usually pretty quick. So I just lost 2 deals last month, and one of them I could tell I was going to lose just based on that metric alone, like I predicted it. So over to Randy.
Yeah, no, I think engagement is critical. I do think that when you bring up the topic of data with perhaps this audience, there might be an allergic reaction, right? Like that's the meeting point of like art and science. So I do want to make sure that like we don't overswing the pendulum. Like we don't want revenue leaders, certainly not frontline leaders, to be data scientists. Like I actually don't think that that's their job. And so when I start to think about this, to me it comes down to, are you prepping your reps? And that could be AEs, that could be account managers, that could be customer support, customer success, anyone who's customer facing. Are you preparing them to see around the corner on the things that drive conversion in the process? And so to just like play out an example, Chorus sits on top of millions of sales conversations. That's what we do. We analyze them. And one thing that's really interesting is since pandemic, CXOs are joining sales calls 86% of the time more than they were pre-pandemic.
Wow.
What's really crazy about that is that leaders on the selling side are not joining as often as CXOs are, and CXOs 10% of the time join without being on the calendar invite.
Wow.
So are you preparing your reps in an early stage conversation to speak to value? Because 71% of the time when a CXO joins a call, they want to talk about economic impact, not technical impact. On close one deals, this is where it gets crazy. On close one deals, CXOs talk 8.5% more than on deals that lose. So are you preparing them to ask open-ended questions to engage a CXO? They only want to see your slides for less than 6 minutes on a given call. So are you sending pre-reads? Are you co-selling with your champion? This sort of stuff is not, again, you don't need to be a data scientist, but if you can help proactively surface to your leaders, these are the things that will help accelerate or slow down a deal throughout the process. They don't need to mine through reports and Salesforce. You just need to help point them in the direction of the things that actually matter. Your managers can't be on every call.
Hey, Randy, can you repeat those bullets?
Yeah.
It's massive that you have the CXO shows up. They're focusing on economic impact over technical impact. You said something about a number of slides.
Yeah, so let's see here. So 71% of the time they want to have economic conversations. CXOs devote less than 6 minutes reviewing material in decks on sales calls. And on close one deals, CXOs talk 8.5% more than on deals that close lost.
So I love it. I love that engagement stat at the end too. Yeah. Wow.
So,
wow.
So
by the way, but that has to be driven by the salespeople, because I think it's very rare that a CXO joins and says, we're ready to buy. It's all about how you engage them.
So here's the other thing I would tell you to do, and I do this all the time, and I've got data. I don't have enough chorus data, so you can slide me a free license.
Wait, you guys get to charge for stuff. Let's talk.
Hey, we're all friends here. Can we all get along? So I need a free license too.
And this is really controversial for people. I tell everybody to send their deck ahead of time for a meeting. There's no bigger colossal waste of time than walking somebody through a deck. That's
correct.
And I can tell you that when I send that deck ahead of time in my meeting, and I have a pre-meeting email that has an agenda, and then I'm like, by the way, this will take you 2 minutes to look through and make our conversation better. I know that email gets open 98% of the time, and that 28% of the time someone looks at the deck. Now, if they don't look at it, so be it. But at least now I have a data point to know how my conversation is going to go. And people can read a deck way faster. To your point, Randy, of the 6 minutes, I'd get it down to 2, right? How do I do that? So anyway, so I love that. I'm glad to hear there's some data behind it.
Yeah. Hey, just one question about the data that you just brought forward, Randy. So I'm guessing that the CXOs are joining during a discovery call. They're not joining during a demo. Like, did you kind of separate those out, or does my question make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. So actually what's interesting about the stat on like engaging with a deck, the alternative is demo. So I know this is really scary for a lot of salespeople out there, like, show the product, right? Like you have the CXO, you want to do discovery. They want organizational impact. And, for a lot of us, it's hard to get the reputation of Mark and Richard, where you're like a trusted consultant advisor on the front lines. And so you have to be able to demonstrate with your product organizational impact, because your slideware is not going to do it. And as charming and as charismatic as some of us might be, you gotta show a little bit too.
I love it.
There's a huge difference. I'm about to put this in the chat. There's a massive difference between the demo and product training. So many
confuse the two.
Are product training.
Yeah.
And I think, and I'd be willing to bet that Chorus has dialed this in a different way. And when you think about that, then you can spend more time on the economic impact, right?
Correct.
You don't need to do death by 1,000 clicks any more than you need to do death by 30 slides in a deck.
No doubt. Yeah, demo is not a how-to guide.
It's not. So to your point, Richard, and to your point, Randy, a good rep should not be scared that the CXO joins the call to do the demo, because a demo done well is just mapping what's discovered in the discovery to the actual features of the product in a very concise way. So in filling out, these variables, you now have power on the call, right? So you can get a plan with the guy who can say yes or no. You should be excited because you do the discovery, you show the economic impact in words, and then you show it in a demo. That's a deal that's more likely to close if you're good, if you're using the right framework or the right lens.
I think it also speaks to an important point that you don't want to be caught flat-footed with that, but you have to coach your team for that as well. Like, hey, no, this is a good thing. Don't be overwhelmed if the CXO joins the discovery call, and it's something that you prepare for. And Randy, based on all that data, here are some common things. Here are some common ways to approach doing the research and the work to make sure that you can have that conversation and have it effectively.
Yeah, and Richard alluded to it, like, is there any correlation between market segment and CXOs joining? And maybe not a huge surprise, but it actually, the data shows that the smaller the deal or the smaller the company, right? In SMBs, for example, CXOs join a lot more often than mid-market or enterprise. And it actually kind of works out linearly in that way. And we have some assets that we can share, by the way, where some of this data comes from. So maybe as a leave behind, we'll share some of this out with the audience.
And that also kind of makes sense though, if you think through, right? It's maybe a bigger purchase or their first big SaaS purchase. So they want to make really, really sure they get it right versus like where you're maybe at like a line item on a director's budget at a really, really big company. This is all good stuff. And we've started to talk a little bit about setting reps up for success in their different sales conversations. I wanted to dive in a little bit deeper into running effective team deal reviews, right? Making those very, very effective for your organization. And Richard, let's start with you on this part. Like what is it? How does it work? What can folks do to make it more effective?
Deal reviews? So a little bit of what I already said earlier, if I'm understanding the question correctly. So before I launch, am I understanding the question correctly?
You are understanding the question correctly.
Okay, just making sure.
Richard, ignite.
So the first thing I would do is, I'm not a fan of the team deal review. It brings a lot of people to waste their time. We love to think that, well, if I bring everybody to the deal review, everybody else can sit and listen and, they can learn something too. And I go back to any VP of sales or CRO and go, how often did you zone out and tune out when you had to sit through a deal review? Now, if your culture is working and it works for you, don't change it just because Richard showed up and said, stop doing it. Like I'm a big fan of like, I can sound like I know a lot of things, but it doesn't mean I actually know everything. So I think that's a big piece of that. I also think you could define it as big deal review. And the big deal review should be more than just everybody walking in and pulling it up on Salesforce or HubSpot and looking on the big screen or on Zoom and just walking through it. You need to pace yourself in that big deal review. We're going to spend 3 minutes on this part, 2 minutes on this part, 3 minutes on this part, so that you can get through them. And very specifically, you need to be looking at, I'll go with my thoughts of, have we triple confirmed the need? Like what pain are they solving? Have we spoken to very specifically the economic impact, not just how much it's hurting them, but what gets done after we take the pain away, right? Do you get to go faster because of that? And if you go faster, what new projects get done and how does that new project affect? Access to authority, right? Because it's not about one person, it's about all of them, and timeline. So to me, you're really dialing in on those things and you have to keep it really tight. Otherwise, they just become 30 minutes, it'll become a 1 hour session where one deal is spoken about for 40 minutes, and then we'll quickly do a couple of others and, people zone out. I'll stop talking.
That was great, Richard. I love it.
I think that's an interesting perspective. Everybody's like, no, we use those as a valuable coaching activity. I think that's a great question. Like, how often are you zoning out in those?
Yeah.
Mark, how do you approach this? How do you recommend folks approach deal reviews?
Going to be a bit repetitive. I'm sorry. Value selling. we inspect each of the elements. It's pretty simple. Again, it removes emotion. I love what Richard just said. Spend 3 minutes on this, 2 minutes on this. The way I apply that is we spend 2 minutes on each element, right? So vision match differentiated means that not only does the prospect see you as the solution, but as the unique solution to their problem. So you have something that differentiates you from the other competitors. We need to nail that. Has that been nailed? If there's a vision match, but it's not differentiated, then it's not a deal. We got to talk about how we get there, how we fix that. The value is, as Richard just said, not only the value in solving the problem, but opportunity costs. What else is not being done because you have this problem? So we fix the problem, then what else happens after that? So there's the value in solving the problem, and then there's the value in realizing lost opportunity costs. Spend a couple minutes examining that. Like, the prospect should be able to tell you in their own words what the value is. If they can't, that's a problem. If you don't see that in an email, there wasn't a voice call in Chorus somewhere where they said, yeah, we see how this will, then that inspection resolves to zero. Power, do you have the person who could say yes or no on the call? And plan. What's the next step, as Richard keeps repeating? And then what are the steps after that? With dates, it's got to be like you know how they say when you make a plan, it's got to be smart. It's got to be like time bound and all this other stuff. It's the same thing. These next steps have to be definite. They have to be on the calendar. We're going to walk through the proposal on this date. Things like that. If there's nothing there in plan, again, this whole thing resolves to zero. So sorry to be so blunt, but it's science, man.
I think it's all great. And I think, Randy, when you think about deal reviews, one of the things you mentioned at the outset was sweat the whole pipeline, or sweat more of the full pipeline. Don't just focus on those that are really close to the finish line. How should we think about that?
Well, I mean, listen, maybe just to summarize what I heard from Mark and Richard, like, I think when you go into a deal review, you have to have an objective. Like, as a leader, what is your objective for the meeting? And for your rep, what is the objective? And then the outcome is like, what is the objective for what we're trying to accomplish on this deal or these deals?
Hey, Randy, I'm going to dive in on you real quick because you run a team, right? Do you do deal reviews?
So I have managers who run deal reviews.
So just let me just grill you for a second.
Go for it.
Sorry, Richard, I'm going to take over. So how often do your managers do a deal review?
We do deal reviews bi-weekly.
And is it done? Do they do them as their team and put them in a conference or in a virtual room, or do they do them one-on-one, like in a pipeline?
They do them one-on-one. And then we use, obviously we use Chorus to asynchronously coach and to track for risks, but in the traditional format, bi-weekly one-on-one.
So that's, you just led me to my next question. What risk are your managers looking for, whether they find it in the deal review or they hear it in Chorus?
Yeah, so we are looking for, one of the things in particular is, are we multi-threaded? So like we know, for example, that it takes 6 to 7 stakeholders to make a decision. So we want to see, are we talking to multiple stakeholders? We want to see, are there next steps set within a time frame that aligns with the typical velocity of our deals? We want to see if,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
We want to see if competition has been mentioned so that we make sure that we're kind of tooling up appropriately. And then, we have a methodology, right? Like some people use BAN or MEDIC or MEDPIC or what have you. And we use that as an objective overlay on each of the deals to make sure that we're not gapped in any one particular way.
Got it. So thanks for letting me dig in. How long did it take you to teach your managers how to run a good deal review, whether here or somewhere else?
Yeah, I think it's an iterative process, but I think to get that framework, it takes time. I mean, to quantify it is maybe a little hard on the spot, but like, just as we teach our reps skills that are on a continuum, like it takes time to get your managers to stick to that program and ask the right questions. All
right, last question, then I'll shut up again.
Go for it.
When your manager, let's say I have 6 or 7 reps and I got to do deal reviews every other week. Am I reviewing every deal, or is it once it hits a certain threshold in your pipeline? Like, when does it trigger for that deal review?
So like I said off the top, I actually think that you should be spending time inspecting 1 or 2 deals that are up funnel and 1 or 2 that are bottom of the funnel, right? Because I want to make sure we're exercising the right behaviors early so that they do convert to the bottom of the funnel.
Yep.
Yeah. And then on the late stage deals that are actually contributing to my forecast, I want to make sure that we are tight.
I'm done.
Did I pass?
I don't know. Everybody go in the chat. Did he pass?
I say pass. I say pass.
Whew.
I say flying colors.
I didn't know this was a job interview.
But listen, you had help though, because you got chorus. So I don't know.
I'll admit it. We didn't prep for that, but I think it went about organically as well as it could have. I was definitely terrified there for 3 seconds. So thank you,
Richard. Come on, you've done enough of these with me to know that I hate prep.
I love it. I love it. Well, folks, we've got a bunch of questions. We got one more topic that we want to hit on here. Please do get your questions in the Q&A panel. The last piece that we want to dive into a little bit is the role of the voice of the customer. We've talked about Mark kind of using a dating analogy, Richard with the next step and the next step and the next step, and Randy's kind of hit on this quite a bit. But Randy, let's start with you here. What's the role that the voice of the customer plays in a lot of this?
Yeah, this topic is like personally near to my heart. Like I've had an epiphany over my time. In leadership and certainly my time with Chorus, we are tasked as revenue leaders to make a lot of key decisions, oftentimes with incomplete data or information. There I go using that word data, right? Like, especially as you think about your pipeline and as you think about your forecast, like you're relying on what your reps say or what your managers say. You're looking at kind of a wasteland, usually in the CRM, or best case, what your reps capture in there. And you're missing this entire perspective, which is probably the most valuable data point of all, which is what are the customers or prospects actually saying? Like, that perspective is massive. And we as leaders, most of the time, are blind to that. So for me, like, the voice of the customer is worth way more weight, perhaps, than what my rep or what Salesforce is telling me. And I think we're finally getting to a point where those things can live side by side. But I would not discredit the voice of the customer, whether that's through email or call or, however you think about that. It's critically important to try to get context from the source.
I think there's a lot there, and I think it's something too. You had some interesting stats where I think one that you had mentioned was about we only retain about 40% of what we learn.
Man, we're getting so scientific on this call. Look at Richard's face right now. We're getting so scientific, but yeah, I mean, like, science shows that, like, we as human only absorb about 40% of what we learn. So imagine you're back to back on calls, and then a few hours later, you then go put your notes in the CRM. Like, you're missing so much fidelity.
That is such a colossal waste of time and energy to do that. Like, it's ridiculous, right? This is why I love Chorus. Like, this is, like, I remember meeting Roy years ago, and I was like, oh, this is going to change the world. So,
yeah, right on.
Slightly different perspective. Related, it means the voice of the customer, but again, in the high ticket sales world, it's like consulting, coaching, info products, high ticket price. A lot of the times when I come in to scale that type of offer, I notice that something is broken, and it's usually the offer. So SaaS sales, the traditional type of sales that we're talking about here at MSP, really follows the same thing. You're making an offer to a niche, right? A niche is a specific set of people in a specific circumstance with a specific desire for a specific transformation, right? The transformation is what your product offers. And Mark Andreessen said once about product market fit, that you can tell when it's happening because people are lined up around the block to give you their credit card. And they ask you 2 questions. They ask you, when's it going to be ready? And how much is it going to cost? Like, that's when you have product market fit. So when you have product market fit, scaling is easy. The voice of the customer is, they vote with their wallet and they tell you, yeah, you have a great product because I paid you ahead of time for something that wasn't even ready. And sometimes, you get sales for a product that doesn't have product market fit. And going back to the voice of the customer and fixing the offer around that is crucial. Hopefully that made sense.
It's good perspectives across the board here. Richard Harris, anything else to add in terms of fold-in voice of the customer and thinking that through before we move to questions?
I'm always about the voice of the customer, right? Just pain the pain, right? Don't talk about what you do. Ask about the pains they're having and the pains you can solve, right? Talk about the pains. Like, Randy doesn't need to come out and say, his team doesn't need to come out and say, we can come out and, help you record your calls so you can do better coaching. That's what course does. And there's a whole lot more. I know that, Randy. But if they can say, look, if you're looking for ways to improve your team to, drastically, and more accurately drive quality into your pipeline and improve forecasting, like that's a pain that a VP or a CRO can feel. People buy pictures, they don't buy words. Paint the picture of pain that they have.
You got it.
This is great, folks. We got about 10 minutes left with our panelists here. We got a bunch of great questions in the Q&A panel, but please do take a second and get those in. And let's get started with this first one here. So let's take Peter Cutler's question. And Peter's asking, how do you feel about having a success leader join in late stage sales conversations to kind of explain what's going to happen once somebody signs? Mark, let's start with you on this point, and then we can roll through the other panels. So bringing in CS late stage to the deal to talk through this is how we're going to get you onboarded and rocking and rolling.
I like it because it speaks to plan in the value selling process. Like the plan is not just when you're going to sign the contract. You know, in Muay Thai, they teach you, or in boxing, they teach you to punch through the target. So you're really looking through the fulfillment. We're talking about getting the problem solved. So what does that look like all the way through the fulfillment? I think that's a great idea to have CS come in to paint that picture. Makes it real, makes it very tangible. You put milestones against it, hopefully. I think it's a great idea.
Richard, Randy, anything else to add on that point?
I just add continuity. Like Mark made the great point, like the project is just starting for the customer when they sign the contract.
That's right.
The worst thing that happens is they just go through weeks or months or, whatever, going through a sales process. And then you introduce somebody new after they spend a bunch of money with you and they have to start all over again. So I love the play of introducing CS. I think it shows that you're prepped and have a plan, and it's going to be a seamless experience for them.
And I think it's
love this too, because I think it helps drive better qualification and discovery. Very specifically, I was just taking some notes, is, the sooner you can get customer success in there, it also allows you to say, hey, who's going to implement this on your side? Should we get them together to have just a timeline conversation? Because whoever's going to implement it got 16 other things they need to implement too. So if they're willing to bring that person forward, that's just a signal that, hey, maybe this is more serious. And then you can confirm it with better answers from that implementer. And in some cases, the installer may be different than the user, right? Who installs Chorus is probably going to be different than who uses Chorus. So that's
in some sense that's
come on. It confirms your timeline because you can figure that out. It lets you drive to confirm that the needs are accurate, because if you're getting closer to the end user, you can find out what's really happening on the front lines. And then the last thing is that it helps you drive the economic impact, because now you can really feel like, how urgent is this? If you can drive the timeline and you can use economic impact, you can adjust that timeline.
I think it's the thing as well. I mean, when we talk about voice of the customer, but like that's part of your customer's expectations as well. Like they don't think of themselves as I'm in stage 4 and I don't get to meet implementation until stage 5. Like that's not how they're thinking about it. There's, the engineer needs to deploy some stuff and they've got a timeline to Richard's point. And like, let's get them talking to the solution engineer when it's appropriate, right? Like I think that makes a ton of sense, and it's a good trick to use, certainly.
By the way, the last thing I'll say on this is it's a good way. You can do it by saying, hey, we want to understand your internal process. Mm-hmm. We've got someone who could do this, but we know you've got 1,000 projects and a lot of people doing stuff. So could we have this conversation so we could at least understand what your process looks like? And now it's less about qualifying and closing, even though it can feel like an assumptive close.
Well, and I think there's a lot to unpack at that point too. There's the discovery component of it. Like, does this person actually have the juice to get the engineer into the conversation and get the technical person in? That could be a risk vector right there. I think the second piece on it too is the engineer's perspective on timeline may be different than the user's. And that's another part where making sure you can forecast and have an accurate discussion about deals. It's another great tell right there. I want to actually throw this one towards Randy. This is a question from Erica. Staying close to the voice of the customer with kind of a large organization, but maybe not yet mature from a tooling perspective. So we don't have Chorus in place, as an example. What are some tips that you have? And Mark, I know you had a few as well, but Randy, what are some recommendations that you would have to stay close to the voice of the customer if you can, get the highlight reel from Chorus, as it were?
Yeah, I mean, I think the voice of the customer, this is going to sound cliche, but it's a bit of a state of mind, right? Like if we're trying to be customer obsessed, then we need to know what our customers are saying. And that's not just about like the sales experience, but from a product market fit perspective, to Mark's point, like, should we prioritize our features in our roadmap based on what we think or based on what they think? Probably what they think. Like, should we be tweaking our market messaging based on like what we think or how the market is actually responding to us? And so, I think it takes a deliberate effort. It doesn't have to be a full-time job. And yes, you can augment it with technology, but otherwise I think it's just something that you need to carve into your operational cadence of either doing interviews or joining some calls throughout the process so that you're capturing the stuff that really matters. It's not just subjectively, we think we need to do this internally. Like, everybody loves their baby. They all love their product, but it really only matters if other people outside the organization do too.
That's right. What happens when you have an ugly baby, right? And ugly babies can have customers too, I guess. Randy, I love that summary. Erica, what a great question. Here's my quick, succinct suggestion. If you have a CS team, have them run, like Randy said, a cadence where they're calling existing customers at a certain stage of usage. So maybe not 30 days after they install or whatever, maybe 60, 90 days. And there's actually a specific set of interview questions you can ask them to get the voice of the customer, to elicit the voice of the customer if you don't have Chorus. So if you want to hit me up afterward, I can actually send those resources to you. If you don't have a CS team, you may have to do those yourself. 3 customer calls a week can get your finger on the pulse of the customer voice. So yes, definitely something you should be including in your cadence.
I'm going to jump in on a tactical. I'm going to talk about one of the F-bombs in sales. There's 4 of them that I talk about. This one is the word feeling. We hear things, what's their intent? What's their intention? How does that sound to you? How does that look to you? What you're really asking, and it's a better question to ask, is how does this feel? Now that we've shown you Chorus, how does this feel compared to what you're currently doing? That's a whole lot better than how does this look? Or how does this look compared to what you're currently doing? I don't care how it looks, right? Purchasing decisions are emotional all the time. All the time. Feeling. And so I'm very, again, I don't know how Chorus prices, but I would literally say, hey, Mark, thanks for your time, for your team of 10, the price of Chorus is, $13,429. How does that feel? And Mark's answer is going to be very different than how does that sound? Because you're like, whoa, that sounds like, I don't care how he thinks it sounds. And the best part is, particularly men, and I will say this, we get uncomfortable when someone asks about our feelings.
Oh, for sure.
Watch them squirm. So anyway, so everybody can bash me.
More gems from Richard Harris. A little bit of neurolinguistic programming, tactical stuff for your tool bag.
I love it. I love it. And I can't believe this, but we're actually almost at time. Panelists, before we wrap up here, we've covered a lot of ground today. I want you to take a second, think of one key takeaway that our audience should have today. Just tweet length, it's going to be longer than tweet length, but just one key takeaway that we want our audience to go home with today. And Richard, let's start with you on this, and then we'll have Mark, and then finally Randy share theirs.
I feel like I'm drained. I feel like I said everything and I forgot it. I think my biggest takeaway from this is making sure that you ask the questions that need to be asked of your reps to help you find the real answer you're looking for, right? And so many times we'll come up with a question, we'll go, oh yeah, that's the question I want to ask. And it's like, no. what do you mean when you wanted to ask that question? And so we need to check ourselves a little bit. And it's the same thing that you do with customers and prospects, is that, it's this deeper dive. So for me, starting at that higher level, as if you're a manager, is asking that better question to get the right answer I want. Sales leaders are really notorious for asking for something and we get it and we go, oh, that's not what I really wanted. I think we're terrible at it. So anyway, I'll stop there. So
Mark.
Cool. My big takeaway would be that you should have an unemotional lens through which to view your sales process. I have one formula that I talked about that fits that bill. You can come up with your own, but it's got to remove emotion from it. It's got to point to the key levers in the sales process and kind of view each with an unemotional lens. And I think that's the one way that you get control over deal risk.
And last but certainly not least, Randy, one key takeaway.
Yeah, I'm tracking with Mark. Like, I think you got to be objective. I think you have to have intent when you start to review your deals, and prep your people, right? Like, you got to practice like you play. And we know that there are surprises in deals. And if you can help your team see around the corner, you're gonna like the result. And also, one bonus one, Richard goes off script, and you should prepare for that.
I love it. I love it. Excellent, folks. I really appreciate it. I know you're all incredibly busy. Thank you all for being good sports and jamming here today. Certainly learned a lot. And thank you all so much for sharing your perspective with all the folks that joined us here today, with everybody watching on YouTube in the future, and all the folks in the community who are going to consume this great content from our landing page. And thanks again to Chorus for the sponsorship and helping us pull this content together. With that, I want to thank you all. Stay safe and hope to do this again real soon. Take care, everybody. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Take care.